Very good afternoon to all in one present here. I am Meenakshi Tomar and I am professor at the Jindal Global Business School. I teach in the area of marketing and communication. It is a privilege and honor for me to introduce Ms. Janvi Fukin over here with us from Ficci FLO. In this particular session, we are going to talk about opportunities and challenges faced by women leaders in MSMEs with special context to the pandemic times. Before I go ahead, I must introduce Ms. Janvi to the audience here. She is the National President for FLO and Director for JTI Group. She is the 37th National President of FLO, the women's wing of Ficci. She is the first FLO President from India's Northeast, and this is indeed a matter of pride for all of us as women leaders here. She is passionate about women's empowerment and tirelessly works towards building sustainable livelihoods for women's economic upliftment. She's an entrepreneur and co-founder of two National Tourism Award-winning companies, Jungle Travels India and Assam Bengal Navigation under the JTI Group, to name it. Her companies are in travel and tourism, long-distance river cruising, hospitality, tea and textiles, all of which touch women's life and livelihood. She was the founder vice chairman of FLO Northeast chapter in 2007. I'm sure with the vast experience and with the kind of topic and theme that we have for today's session, the participants of this particular workshop are going to benefit the most. On that note, I welcome you, Ms. Janvi Fukin, to the session, and I would take your permission to start with the first question that I have for you for this session. Ma'am, my first question to you is, what is your take on women in MSME in India with respect to their leadership during MSMEs in pandemic times?
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Dr. Tomar, and delighted to be here. I was, and a big namaste to all our friends from Korea joining us here today. I'd like to tell you a bit about the Indian status for women in MSME today, that we women comprise 49% of the population of our 1.3 billion people, but only 14% of the total entrepreneurs in India are women, according to Startup India. So we have like just 8 million entrepreneurs, but the number of male entrepreneurs has crossed 50 million. So the government has taken cognizance of this, and they're working very closely to empower women. And women entrepreneurs, we know, are going to play a significant role in advancing the growth of our country. So according to the International Finance Corporation now, they collectively contribute about 3.09% of industrial output, and they employ about 10% of total workers engaged in different economic activities. But we are still ranked third highest in the entrepreneurship gender gap across the world. Now in 2018, the Ministry of MSME, the small medium enterprises, they launched what is called the Udham Sakhi. It's a network for nurturing social entrepreneurship to create business models revolving around low-cost products and services to resolve social inequities. Now this portal, it caters to about 8 million Indian women who have started working or they're running their own businesses through its platform for entrepreneurship, learning tools. It gives an incubation facility that has training programs for fundraising. It provides mentors. It provides one-on-one investor meetings. It gives, helps women with the market survey finding, research, and it gives technical assistance. So this is the Udham Sakhi of Government of India. And our government has been really proactive in trying to push this opportunities for women outside the four walls of their home. So to date now, about 1.3 lakh projects have been set up by women entrepreneurs under what the Prime Minister has also got a scheme called Employment Generation Program, PM EGP, Prime Minister's Employment Generation Program scheme. This came into inception 2 years ago, and since last year, the projects set up by women entrepreneurs are about the total 30% of the total projects done so far. And under the scheme, women entrepreneurs are covered under the special category, and they're entitled to 25% and 35% subsidies for the project, 25% for urban, 35% for rural areas, respectively. That is the effort by the government. And not only in MSME, the government of India has also taken various steps towards women's empowerment and safety issues. There are initiatives like, I'll just mention, there's Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, which means teach the girl child. There's Stand Up India. There's a Mission Indradhanush. We have the Mudra Yojana scheme for financing. We have the TREAD, T-R-E-A-D, Trade-Related Entrepreneurship Assistance and Development Scheme. We have the Mahila Udyam Nidhi scheme, the Shri Shakti scheme for women entrepreneurs, and various this, which are all dedicated towards the welfare of the women population of our country. So the government has really taken tremendous steps to identify this. And the challenge now is for organizations such as us, the Women's Chamber of Commerce, to connect the dots with the government's enormous amount, plethora of opportunities given, and to the women who need the most. Thank you.
Thank you for answering that, ma'am. My next question to you is, what is your take on the women leaders' position in MSMEs in Korea?
Okay, I'm glad you asked that question. I was trying to do a little homework on that. And what we find that the McKinsey Global Institute tells us that if they could close the gender gap in economic opportunities in South Korea, that would increase the GDP by up to 9%, or about $160 billion by 2025. So while Korea is currently the 12th largest economy in the world, the country is grappling with declining growth rate, slow job creation, and major demographic challenges, including low birth rate and rapidly aging population, just the exact opposite of India, with the largest growing population in the country and the youngest population under 35. But at the same time, Korea also has one of the world's widest gender pay gaps. Its women's earnings account for about just 67% of the men's. That's according to Korea's Ministry of Gender Equality and Family. Further, less than 4 out of the 10 businesses are owned by women, and only a quarter of the new corporate businesses are started by women. So given these gaps and the potential for change, Korea stands to broadly benefit from targeted economic policies and programs to foster a more robust entrepreneurial ecosystem where women are supported and encouraged to grow their businesses. And I think gender is also a barrier in Korea, much like it is in our country as well.
Thank you, ma'am. That was a wonderful insight on both the countries. Ma'am, what, according to you, are the challenges that are faced by women leaders in both the countries with specific insight to MSMEs? And it would be wonderful if you can just give your opinion on how is it going during the pandemic times.
Yeah, the challenges have been there, and we don't want to dwell too much on the challenges. However, since you've asked me that, let me also take that up. That women, yes, have challenges, both the entrepreneurial problems and the problems of their gender in society, to want to become that entrepreneur. The patriarchal mindset, the male dominant social order, these are the blocks towards women's growth in businesses outside their homes. But we are surpassing that. The other challenges are the financial resources in the forms of capital, working force, working capital, land in women's name. So the patriarchal society, to access credit for starting an industry, This is also one of the challenges faced. But the government has taken cognizance and they are looking for ways around it. For instance, women generally don't have property in their own names to be able to use it as a collateral. They have to take their husbands or their fathers. So there was always that big gap. That is why the bank would also consider them less creditworthy. And women are also not updated with the latest market knowledge. And so if the production exceeds the demand, the capital gets stuck in unsold stock. So those are the market knowledge, the domain strengths. So when we find that according to a survey by IFC, only 14% of women entrepreneurs were aware of the financial schemes, which I mentioned that time, launched by the government or the financial institutes. So this is always where many organizations like us should play a role. So basically, these were the problems. There's also the problem regarding infrastructure, marketing, pricing of the product, how to service, and the service to be provided for the product, and the promotion of the product to be sold. And the male-female factor, competition, is another factor. The men have that edge over you, but we cannot take that as an excuse any longer. We are going to surpass that and work towards improving on our part of the story. So despite women being good in keeping prompt services, deliveries on time, due to this lack of organizational skills compared to the male entrepreneur, they've had more constraints. And the other thing is the confidence to be able to travel night or day, be able to freely, go about their business in different regions and states. That's always been an issue for that safety issues. That is the low level of freedom of being able to express themselves, the freedom of mobility. That was also a hindering factor. Those are some of the challenges, but not to say that they are been major. They were there. We hope, New India, we are overcoming those challenges. Let's put it that way. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. In fact, it's much rightly quoted by you that yes, there are schemes and the women are not really aware. On that note, can you just highlight on certain steps which have been taken by the government where they have seriously catered to this need of awareness amongst women as leaders in MSMEs?
The opportunities?
Yes, ma'am.
So, let's talk about the opportunities now.
Yeah.
So, in India alone, we have about 3 million women-led businesses. And this number is only expected to grow. They could be micro businesses, but they are 3 million. So it's immensely important that women entrepreneurs are given the right kind of enabling environment to be these equal partners to help India scale up to the tune that our Prime Minister talks about, the $5 trillion economy. Well, women also have to come forward, have to be more open-minded, more creative, and working within the system and in COVID times. We know that what has happened with COVID and this unprecedented situation has created a dent for all countries. But we have had to adjust, adapt to the new normal and find new ways of challenging the status quo. So what McKinsey tells us is that they also study that India can add $700 billion to our economy if our women in India can reach that global average. Of the global average for women, female participation is 48%. In India, we are under 27%. So there's that's a big gap which needs to come forward on. And I do believe with the right policies and the right, thrust by the government, we will get there. So those are the opportunities there. The MSME has been hard hit by COVID, but the government is also working very strongly towards the revival. And they put MSME under what they call the Atma Nirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. So that is what the government called the self-reliance scheme. And in this major thing thrust was, which was useful for everyone, was the change in definition of what the micro, small, medium enterprises. Earlier, the earlier definition that it only relies solely on the book value of investments to determine their MSME status. And the sales turnover criterion was also added now. Secondly, the distinction between manufacturing and services has been abolished. Thirdly, the threshold amount has also increased. Later, when the changes were notified, the government has increased the investment and sales threshold, turnover threshold for the medium enterprises. So this has helped people to have bridged the gap and be qualified as medium enterprises. So this is where we find it's been a plus for women, and we need to be able to take this forward. I wanted to mention about, so this is what they've done for MSME by improving on the qualification, on the status of what MSME is about, and women are getting a great role to play in that.
Thank you so much, ma'am. My next question to you is, where do you see the way forward to women leaders in MSME post-pandemic as well?
We find that for women to go forward, we will have to, what we have done in Flow, for instance, let me say, that we took up, the government had started this program called the Government E-Marketplace, the GEM portal. And that has mandated, the government has mandated that 3% of all its services and goods sold will be through women vendors. Now, this is a very important point that we needed to bring to the attention of our members. So we have signed an MOU with the Government E-Marketplace, we as in Flow, and through our 17 chapters pan-India and our 8,000 members that we have all over the country, to make them aware of the potential about onboarding these sites, to take the businesses on board and ensure that they also have that level playing field. The government is trying to create the level playing field for us, giving at least the 3%. So let us at least try to reach out and take that forward. So this is why the MSME we're very excited about, and this tying up with the GEM e-marketplace is very important for us. And the other thing we feel what we do in Flow is work towards creating our mentorship cells, our incubation cells, to enhance our potential, to grow our businesses, and to understand how we can, go further together on this. So these are some of the factors I would want to mention about the way forward for Atmanirbhar, for MSME sector.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for this insight. Could you please also highlight on some of the initiatives which FLO has taken for the other ones? And it would be great if you can just cite one of your own experiences in these initiatives that you have also taken. We see you as a motivation and we see you as an inspiration in this field.
We think that the government can only do its bit. But for a woman to be entrepreneurial has to go in many ways. Within our organization, Flow is 37 years old. It's the oldest chamber of business, of commerce for women in South Asia. And we've always dealt with women at 3 levels of what we call women empowerment. Economic empowerment is a very crucial part of it. And we try to work with women on the 3 levels: grassroots, the medium sector, the urban sector, and the corporate. And coming in as I did this year as a national president, I took upon my mission as working towards sustainable practices and work towards sustainable livelihood for women's economic upliftment, by which I meant, coming as I do from India's Northeast, it's all about sustainability. And if we have to go for living within our, with the migrant labor returning to small towns and villages, the economy will have to take up from the bottom up. So the whole value chain is changing. It's becoming a circular economy. The government wants that we do more in our smaller towns and in our smaller economies. We put more emphasis on agribusinesses, on tourism as a sort of a value chain for women, on the handloom handicrafts. So these are all large employers of the country. They also, I mean, agriculture is the largest employer in the world. So is handloom handicrafts is second in the country, also with majority being women. So all these, and a lot of them fell into the informal work. So India's women really not getting, tabulated for the output because they're all falling into the informal sector. So this is being taken note of now. So that the formal, informal sectors, now we know during COVID times, how the healthcare workers are the informal, the Anganwadi workers, the foot soldiers in the villages going out and sensitizing people about the COVID awareness. They became the informal labor, but they are working. So all those will have to be taken note of. So what we have done in Flow is that we have, instead of waiting for the old world to return, we just had to think differently to reach our goalposts. So what we did was we spoke about adopting a village in each of our chapters and concentrate our efforts there. When we couldn't go to them physically, we were at least being able to teach them even online. And what they needed was, they needed life skills training, because to just killing and hoping they will take off on their own will not happen. They have to be, nurtured to get their self-belief and their self-esteem up, to be able to think for themselves and have confidence in themselves. So that is what we started these life skills training. We've adopted these villages. In the urban areas, we've adopted the ITI, that's the Industrial Training Institute, where we've reached out to young people. And the Industrial Training Institutes are the government secondary school, which look after trade. So so we've been able to reach out to young students in these industrial areas and give them a workshop training. And the first 3 batches alone, we had over 2,500 students all over the country, and we did it online. So seeing the huge sort of interest that young people have, we've also signed up with the National Skill Development Corporation, NSDC, and going to them with more content and going out to more audience. So that is the job of our chamber. And that is how we're trying to objective is to create sustainable economic possibilities for women at these 3 levels. So these are all and to foster a nano entrepreneurship. Let them create their micro enterprises, but in the fostering that spirit is so important. So we feel that we are playing an active role in enabling women entrepreneurship through these verticals. I was mentioning our mentorship program, where we've taken a lot of aspiring women who have businesses. They needed to be mentored. And once they built their confidence, they knew how to nurture that business forward. And once they reached a particular level, they went on to what we call the Flow incubation cell. And for now, across the country, we have signed up with IITs and IIMs and other great universities who are incubating these young startups. And we are all adding them to creating entrepreneurs for our country, because we can no longer be job seekers. We have to be job creators. And that, I think, is the role of Flow. And in that, with these various organizations and government bodies, we have been able to, NSDC, like I mentioned, the government e-marketplace, and the Ministry of Tourism, with whom we have tied up. I'm very excited that even there we have nano entrepreneurs, say the rural homestay, the rural tourism opportunities, the food chains which are there. So women from near the forest land, near the tourism sites, who need to be nurtured to be able to create their their, their farm produce into a tangible wealth for themselves. So that is our hope, and that is how we are going along this path.
That was a really insightful things that you have discussed, ma'am. I have another question for you over here. Now, when you would be meeting these women entrepreneurs, have you ever seen them coming out with some myths or some sort of difficulties when it comes to convincing their family members when they have to start a new business, especially with rural women?
Mm. It's very interesting. I must mention another point to you that at Flow we took up what is called the training for young people in the urban sector when we had the retail malls had closed down and all our young people who were working as sales girls and front security girls, they were coming back to the small towns. They had been exposed to the city life. They had the confidence to manage. So there we offered them training to become two-wheeler drivers. So we had a Flow member who's taken this forward, and they train women to learn not only the two-wheeler driving but also get their driving license and get their job with these. Because now with e-commerce is the order of the day, but you need the deliveries. So that big delivery gap they were able to form. So when they were going out, it was women. These are married women, young women, and the mother-in-laws were also very skeptical about letting their daughters step out and do this work. So I think if the woman can be convinced that her daughter-in-law is adding value to the family, she's proud of her and she will also support. So wherever you've been able to show a woman leading or a woman starting a business or a woman being able to do good on her own, earning money back for the family, she has been given that pride of place. So we're also working at changing the mindset. So it's a whole societal, physical, every space that we are involved in that to change the mindset, to empower the woman and fight that male dominancy in some areas of the country. So that has been very fruitful, and I think that is how women now see themselves. That and our the education has helped, exposure has helped, the being able to reach out to them with their digital skills, financial skills, talk to them on more on these on the empowering talks to be given to them. That has helped. The other thing I must mention quickly here is how we took forward the handloom handicraft sector. Now in the COVID times, with the depressed market, the distressed artisans were the worst hit, right? So where would they sell? Who would they sell to? Everything's closed, no access to raw material, no market, no understanding. And there we were able to step in with an organization called Creative Dignity, who are a group of e-commerce sites. They got together, there are about 10, 15 e-commerce sites under that, and they all work to reach out to the artisan, give them the skills, teach them how to take their photograph, of their product, explain their product, and, we help them to upload it on the system. So for the first time, the artisan has realized the value of her goods and the fact that she's getting recognized for that. Because earlier, these are all the vulnerable and the invisible women and men who, never got the value because it was always a middleman. So those are the things that COVID has brought and that the online world has brought with the e-commerce opportunities, which we've been able to bring some, hope and I think the confidence building for women in handloom and handicraft sector as well. So that's also been very encouraging. And I think we all have to step back and see how we can add to this new order and not want to go back to the old one.
Thank you, ma'am. You've rightly said that. We need to follow the new normal. Coming to my next question, ma'am. In India, it is generally believed that if a woman is married and if she wants to start up with a new business, she wants to become an entrepreneur, or if she is into a leadership role, there are certain distinct skills that are seen. What is your take on that, ma'am?
Well, I just think the main thing that you need is to have the passion, to believe in it, and to be perseverant. There is no shortcut to success. There is no, easy money in this. It's a long haul. You have to be prepared. You have to believe in yourself, and you have to. That's the difference between an entrepreneur and the job seeker. I should think because you have to be able to find the gap in the market, and you have to consistently work towards it, and not be another copycat of what is already in the market. That is, you have to distinguish. There will be a niche. Go in for a niche product, identify that gap in the market, believe in it, and it won't come easy. It's a long haul, but if you can hang in there, the sky is the limit.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks for the answer to that. There are many companies in India too, especially the Tata Group, which emphasizes that women students are imparted different levels of leadership skills, and they are motivated to take up entrepreneurship as their career. If they're not taking entrepreneurship, they are basically associated to one or the other kind of incubation centers, and they are expected to be associated with them on a contractual basis. Now, how far do you think that contractual assignments like these motivate or demotivate women leaders? Because at times it is generally believed that when it comes to contractual basis, specifically for women, it gives a tan spot on the kind of belief or trust that the organization has over them. What is your take on this, ma'am?
Do you mean a work contract or?
Absolutely, ma'am. The work contract.
Hmm. Well, we have to look at both sides of the coin, really, because if the entrepreneur has, there's also in entrepreneurship as in business, there's also ethics. Whoever's taking you on the contract is also giving you that trust. You're also feeding on his trust. So ethics are very important. Integrity is important. If you think he's taken a contract, there must be. It's just that it's not that he is the employer. Is it the employer-employee contract you're talking about? But I don't know what contract would an entrepreneur have unless it's in what.
So basically what they do is they do not poison the ownership to the women completely. They want them to work on a project for a year or two, and on the basis of the performance of the first 2 years, looking at the challenges, looking at what good things that have been brought to the table, is when they freeze the contract to a permanent thing.
I see. Well, yeah. Well, I didn't have much knowledge about that, but I guess presuming that there is that means very clearly structured. What is expected? So if their sort of deliverables are met, the project could be honored on both sides. So in this case, it's probably clear that these are the deliverables. This is what you're expected to perform. And are you coming? And they have set a benchmark. I guess they would do that because whereas an entrepreneur really works for himself or herself. So she's not answerable to anyone. But in this case, it's not just an entrepreneur, but somebody who's working on behalf. A freelancer would be different from an entrepreneur because an entrepreneur is not answerable to. It's only their own set. Whereas in this case, you're talking about a freelancer who's working on a freelance project. But yes, then they would be answerable to the deliverables expected. That's
so
my.
there was a series on Amazon Prime, which is A Mate in Heaven, which showcased one particular case where the lady is dependent on the funds which were given by the husband through his company. She is running her own company, but somewhere or the other, she is answerable to the husband, and somewhere or the other, he always had in mind that if she doesn't perform good, then probably the ownership needs to be shifted. So there are many such arrangements which have been seen of late with MNCs, ma'am. And that's what motivated me to bring this question to the table. On that note, ma'am, I would now request you to share any other point that you have to share with the audience with respect to women leadership before we move on to the question and answer round for the participants.
Okay. You know, this, I'm just reminded about somebody had spoken about some leader that I think it was I hope there'll be a day when we will not be asking about women leaders, but just leaders. We don't have to be talking on our gender, neither expecting just a leader, not a woman leader.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And that's a very, very strong note that you've given. At least I am really very, very privileged to be moderating this, because I individually believe that there's nothing called as women leaders. Leaders are leaders. We need to be gender neutral. We need to motivate people irrespective of the genders. And that's where we see a new level of growth coming up. It could be such that two women run a company really nice as compared to a women and a men doing it. So it absolutely has to be gender neutral. Thank you so much for that note, ma'am. I now open up the question and answer round for the participants. I would request you to please unmute yourself and ask the question directly to Ms. Janvi.
Thank you, Meenakshi. Enjoyed that interaction with you.
My pleasure, ma'am. We request the participants to please raise their questions if you wish to ask anything to the speaker.
Yeah, Miss Nojan, could you please?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for your talk. I'd like to hear more how female leaders, sorry for the use of this term, but how female leaders have transformed the masculine business practices in India.
Mm-hmm. Yes, right. So, you know, like we said, that, you know, India is such a large country. We are like a subcontinent. And whereas some areas we have more patriarchy and more male dominated social order, in some areas we don't. Maybe where I come from in the northeast of India, we are pretty much on a, you know, level playing field. Maybe we had that advantage. But anyway, having said that, in today's India, and India, as you know, also comprises of many levels: the grassroots, the urban sector, the corporate sector. So we are such a vast country with so many different experiences that, yes, areas where our women have had problems. Mind you, we in India have women at the very grassroots, on the Gram Panchayat. That's in the rural area, in the grassroots area, women are empowered. They've been given that mandate by the government to play that leadership role as a panchayat leader, as a village level leader. And that is really, that she faced a lot of opposition. In the beginning, there was a lot of resistance to that, but they have come so far. And now in the new India, that is, I mean, I'm not saying it's all a perfect picture for our country, but yes, this being able to empower from the village level has been a great stepping stone. And from the village, you go to town and you go on to the cities. But yes, the change had to come at the village level. And that has happened because we have this social system mandated by the government. And we are fighting for a 33% reservation, which hasn't happened right now. But in a lot of countries, a lot of our states, like your provinces, we have that in place. And though women, I must say that in the political system, we still have not as many leaders as women as we would like, but we are getting there. And in our parliament as well, in our corporate heads as well. There are women in the corporate level, let me tell you, that the government has mandated that each board must have at least 3 women directors. And a lot of companies have not, complied with that, but they are working towards that as well. So at each level, the government has taken cognizance and government has tried to mandate the women's participation. So it has to work with the government and, of course, the society at large. Thank you.
Thank you for answering that, ma'am. I'm sure the participant has received the answer. And yes, you have rightly said that the kind of amendments, the kind of incorporations that the government is doing right from the grassroots level to the top level, they are certainly going to make a difference. And we are sure that in the times to come, especially post-pandemic, we are going to see many changes. As such, work from home was something which was always tagged to women. But now it's across all the genders that have been tagged with work from home during the pandemic times. And certainly we are likely to see absolutely, could be a vast difference, could be a no difference. So we are waiting for the tangent to appear very nicely post that. Are there any other questions from the participants? If you have, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hello, I have a question, if you can hear me.
Ma'am, before we close, I have one last question. What motivated you to start your own company?
Okay, that's a nice one. You know, when I was really a trained journalist, but I came back to Assam because I was always in Calcutta, in a big city, come back to Assam when I got married. And I was like, what do I do here? In fact, in our days, when I'd come back as a trained journalist, that, you know, our TV, what is called the Doordarshan, the Indian TV channel had also not opened because it was such a small town, Guwahati. So instead, I was, my husband said, let's start something of our own, because my husband is a tea taster, a tea man. But okay, and it was just a dream that let's start something and bring people to the jungles of the Northeast. And we called that company Jungle Travels India, and it just got on. So it's been 30 years ago, and we started with 1,000 rupees as the house rent, and the two sort of, you know, delivery boys, and that would be me. And my husband was in his own office in tea. But I think the passion and the dream and hanging in there. Today, 30 years later, we are over 300 people. And we still work for, because tourism is not a business, you know, it's also a labor of love. And we empower so many people as we go along, that all the young people who work with us, and the river cruising company that we started, we were the first to start it in India, coming from Assam, but we have the magnificent river Brahmaputra. And we could start that long distance river cruising, you know, employ so many young people along the way who are all growing with us. So it's a very empowering, it's a very socially conscious sort of a business we are in. And we are, you know, and the company sort of grew. So did the people with it, and we're all stakeholders. And I think that's the business of an entrepreneur. To love what you do, get up each morning and still work. We still love, because we love what we do. We have to love what you do. You have to believe in yourself, and you must see the impact it has on the environment and on your community. It must be a win-win for everyone. So that is what keeps me going.
Rightly said, ma'am. You're very right. We need to give back to the society. We need to love. We need to be passionate about what we do. And above all, fall in love with it each and every single day.
Yes.
Well, on that note, I would like to take this moment to extend our heartfelt gratitude to you for sparing out valuable time for this session. I am absolutely sure that each one of us who are present here have really made the most out of every single thing that you've shared with us on this virtual platform. And not only this, we would love to host you on our campus once everything sets all right. It would be indeed a great pleasure for us to have you there and have our students interact with such a motivational leader that we have amongst us today. I would also like to thank the participants for their patience, listening. I would thank Ms. Shruti Patil for coordinating, Professor Gaganpreet Singh for getting us connected over here, and above all, Mr. Amit Mohapatra and the entire Jildi team for putting up this valuable session for all of us this afternoon. So on that note, thank you everyone. Thank you so much for joining in.
Professor Tomar.
Namaste to all, and thank you very much for having me here.
Professor Tomar.
Yes, ma'am.
Actually, we have one question from the Korea participant, Yongbek. Could you please raise your question?
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Okay, sorry for asking a question after Professor Omar has done all the closing statements, but I just did a quick Google of Ficci, if that's how you pronounce it. And the slogan
Oh,
is
yeah.
industry's voice for change, for policy change. And I think a reoccurring theme across all of our lectures thus far has been education. And so I was wondering if there's any actions that this that your organization has taken to addressing some of the policies for the educational sort of weaknesses and
Yeah,
how it affects.
certainly. We are, I represent the women's wing of Ficci, and that's FLO, F-L-O. And FLO's motto is the power to empower. We are also a voice for policy change. And we are a collective voice for India's women. And we take all the policy matters to the government. And in our, the e-commerce is been a game changer for us. That is one policy we talk on a lot with the government. Education, of course. We see a lot of, sort of opportunities with Korea. Our country is looking more and more to interfacing with your countries on matters of education, especially for STEM education. There's a great emphasis on STEM, great emphasis on the girl child, great emphasis in my country on training the tribal minorities. So these are all different sects, because India is, like I said, such a large and like a subcontinent with so many gaps and so many educational differences to take care of, that yes, the government has taken up a very exciting new policy, which is the national education policy, which has completely turned the old system on its head. So we're very excited by that. And that will be rolled out by, I think, early next year. And there'll be a game changer for our country. There will be more emphasis on vocational, and it's really overridden all the past, systems. So in this government has also done a tremendous amount for the farm, for agriculture. So there's a lot to talk about what our government is doing, and it's a reformist government. We have a reformer as a prime minister, and there are several sectors to talk about, which should be outside the ambit of this today. But I'd like to say that when we're talking to Korea here, that we from FLO are working towards what we call the Women W7. We are reaching out to women of 7 regions, and we're trying to have a collaboration with women leaders and thought leaders on loosely tying on matters of common interest and also on trade. Because in this new world, in the new normal, it's been easier to reach out. And we've had conversations with Australia and now with Netherlands, with Myanmar, in different sectors, different regions. And we want to be able to take that forward with your country. And of course, Korea is such a developed country. There's always a lot of opportunities to work together, even in your educational institutes. We need more intercultural student exchanges, like what you have with the Jindal University today. Does that answer your question?
President Pukon, can I add one more question?
Sure.
Okay. So I guess your organization is membership based. So I'm wondering what kind of requirements are requested to the potential members.
Yes. Well, we in India, we represent just the women's body, but later when we can do this collaborative trade, it will be really open to a larger segment. So this is what we want to loosely work towards. But yes, in India, it is it's open to all members who want to. We've not, we also have members from homemakers to educators to professionals to businesswomen, HNI to every sort. And they've all come. What is the only thing that we ask for? A spirit of commitment. This is all we work as honorariums. And we all put in our own, sort of collective force behind it. And now for my 17 chapters, Pan India, we are 8,000 members. And I sort of call them like one flow. That's a hashtag one flow, because we are doing tremendous amount of work now. And the thing is that from working with artisans, working on special health issues, with the COVID times, there was a lot of mental health breakdown. A lot of my chapters went on the psychosocial counseling problems. I mean, from psychosocial to high tech to agriculture to a gamut of. We think we can cover every sphere. There is a lot to be done in the country, but each of us will lend a bit. I think we, like I say, every drop in the ocean counts.
Thank you.
Ms. Lee, are there any other questions that the participants would like to ask before we formally close the session?
Sure. Brilliant participants, do you have any more questions before we close the session?
We would love to meet your women entrepreneurs, to give us an opportunity to interface with them and see whether there could be a common fit. We also look forward to that. And I know in our country, there's a lot of emphasis on, teaching them young and raising them young in the STEM. STEM is a big, big field that we need to pay more attention to, and it's being done. So I know Korea, of course, has a lot to offer. Usually advanced training country, but yeah, the opposite of ours. We'll have a declining birth rate. We have a bursting birth rate. And the youngest population on the planet now, pretty soon.
This is Kyung-soo. I'm from the Asia Foundation Korea office, and thank you very much for your presentation and answering all the questions. Ms. Janavia, what you mentioned about the STEM just reminded me the Asia Foundation, San Francisco headquarters, now holding STEM conference, Women's Leadership in STEM conference, started yesterday, and then will last until Friday. So it's a kind of a trilateral summit, US, Korea, Japan, a summit on women's leadership in STEM. So if you're interested in, you're welcome to join that session. I mean, visit the session for your interest. And while I'm on this session, I'm just wondering, since you have 17, 18 chapters throughout India, and I wonder what the most influential foreign assistant to support women, Indian women entrepreneurs or women enterprises. Any good examples of bilateral support or international organization support or international NGOs support in your effort? So that's because our participant is from government, NGOs supporting the various areas in developing countries, and those who are interested in supporting women and economically. So any very good examples of some good projects that might be helpful to their research and their program with their organization. So 1 or 2 good examples would be very helpful. Thank you.
Right. We are, frankly, with us in Flow, we, of course, we have an MOU with UN Women. We work with, they've been we run a lot of the incubation centers. We're very strong in that. We work with the IIMs of India, the IITs, some of the offhand I can't tell you, but the private universities are also in touch with us, where we're nurturing our women, nurturing entrepreneurship, maintaining and helping them on the incubation platform. And from there, we hope to go onto the acceleration. So
Yes, the Korean government, Asia Foundation also supported women incubating center in Mongolia with Korean government, the development fund. So I'm glad to hear that in India, you also have that initiative in Korea. Thank you very much.
frankly, whatever we've been doing is pretty much on our own. I mean, we've been quite self-sustaining and managing. We've not really had too many times. You know, the thing and each president comes with her own vision. And this is what I led into my year, despite, you know, the COVID times and everything. And we hope we leave this legacy behind and it will continue. So we are very keen to see that, sorry, I'm trying to switch this thing off. So we are very keen to see that the tie-ups continue to happen. We have a lot of international collaboration already in place. For instance, with the South Asia countries, one with IWEC, which is International Women Entrepreneurship Council. So there are several such we already have. We are very keen to take this W7 forward. And I do look for assistance from Asia Foundation to tie this thing up together, because I think this world today is in need of that, a more loosely knit organization of, sort of bonding of women around these women of the 7 regions and to take that trade possibilities forward. So that is what we're working towards. Thank you.
I think that will be all from us.
Thank you so much, Ms. Lee, for confirming that. I once again thank all of you for joining in, and a special thanks to Ms. Janavi Fukin for being with us and sharing her such informative and interesting insights with all of us. On that note, namaste to all of you. And once again, we look forward to getting connected with all of us on campus once. Thank you very much and have a safe afternoon ahead.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Good afternoon.
Thank you.